Hello there. Good morning. Hi, everybody. So glad to see you this morning. Actually, I wish I could actually see you. That would be great, but I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Delinda, your host for Tuesday Live Faith in Action, where faith meets everyday life. Each week, we bring you practical tips and conversations that inspire you to put your faith in action. Because if we don't put it in action, really, what good is it, right? So that's what I am here for, to encourage you, inspire you to just take your faith a little bit, get a little bit bolder, and live it out every day. So, how are you doing this morning, and where are you? I would love it if you would, in the comments, I will tell you first of all, for whatever the reason, I cannot watch your comments in the chat right at this moment. However, I do always go back and look at them and read them. So I would love to know who you are and where do you live? So are you in the Kansas City area? Are you in Las Vegas? Are you in, I don't know, Washington, D.C.? Maybe you're, I don't know, in Africa. Probably not because of the time change. In any case, I'm glad you're here. And thank you so much for deciding to spend your time here today. So we are going to talk about what I'm calling today the confidence gap. Now, the first question that I want to ask you is, what are you waiting for? Now, I know we've talked about this before, but this is kind of from a different perspective. That sometimes I think we are waiting for life to just hand it over to us, right? You're going to wait till you know more, till you get your degree, till you have more experience, maybe until the kids are older, you have more money. Have you ever said that? You know, when I just have a little more money, I'm going to do this, or when my kids get a little bit older, when my son can drive and I don't have to be in the car all day. If that's what you're thinking, you're going to really miss it. Oh, I remember when Justin got his license. It hurt me. I mean, I was so looking forward to it, thinking how great it was going to be that he could drive himself. But what I didn't realize, so those of you who are getting close to that, what I didn't realize is that time that I had had in the car was so precious. And that's when we would talk about stuff, and you'd ask, how was school today? Fine. Or, they don't say too much. But if you can get some conversation going, and sometimes it just happens and they're chit chatty and whatever. But I found I really missed that time in the car. So one thing, just saying, let me say for the day is enjoy where you are, wherever you are, be there. I was just talking to a group about that. Can't remember what group I was talking to. Might have been my faith and boldness group. In any case, really talking about how sometimes we're missing such beautiful moments because we're waiting for something better, we think, to come along. Sometimes we're waiting to start a new business, or we're waiting to try something new. One of the things I want you to think about, and what I call the confidence gap, is where God is calling you, and that gap is where you're willing to step. That sometimes there's a big gap here, sometimes it's a small one, but sometimes there is a gap between what God's calling you to and the step that you need to take to move towards that. And that's where the what are you waiting for comes from. Because if you're waiting to be ready, you're never going to be ready. I mean, this just doesn't happen that way. I had a friend of mine in Las Vegas. We did a class. It was called Gifts, as a matter of fact, Girlfriends and Friendship Together. It was awesome. For years, we were all together. And one of the things that we talked about is when you get ready to take a trip, excuse me, whether it's to drive downtown or take a long distance trip, what if you waited until every light was green? Would you ever start? No, but that's what we fool ourselves into thinking, is that when things get all lined up, when the money's there, when the kids are gone, you know, uh, when the grandkids get into school, whatever that looks like in your life. And I think it'd be a great idea if you just right now would write down, just take a piece of paper, your spiral, whatever you keep by you, wherever you, and if you're driving, please don't do that. But, if you can write it down, I want you to write down those first things that come to your mind, because I believe that most of you do have something that you're waiting on. You're waiting to finish this or that. And yeah, sometimes we don't have to wait till we finish. We just have to start. Imagine with me a little toddler, a little bit, not even quite a toddler, that right in between where they're crawling and they're learning to walk a little bit. and they see mommy or daddy coming down the driveway to come home. So they're looking at the door and they just can't wait and they just get so excited and they're watching and they crawl a little bit and then they stand up because they want to try to run and then they fall down again. And then along the way there could be a toy that's laying over here, before our little person gets to the door, and they kind of scooch over there and they play with the toy and then they still see daddy in the garage, I mean in the driveway. And so then they kind of scoot back over and they start moving towards the door again. But what if they didn't get back up? What if they just stopped? They would never learn to walk. They'd never reach that beautiful anticipation of being pulled up in mommy or daddy's arms. And that's what we do sometimes. We get sidetracked with the shiny objects, right? We decide that, oh well, I'll stop here and do that. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And we stop over here. Now, sometimes God directs us that way. I'm not saying that. But I know myself, it's so easy for me to get sidetracked and go down a different road instead of the one that I believe he's got me on, or I think maybe I know a little better. I don't consciously think it, but obviously because I do it, I must subconsciously think, well, I can handle this myself. Why? I don't know, because he always has the better plan. So as we continue to think about that, so think about what God wants you to do and what is that gap that's keeping you from doing it. And oftentimes it fills up with lots of things. It could be fear, self-doubt, perfectionism. That's a big one. Is that you? If that is, write that down and you got to work through that. People pleasing, oh my goodness. Many of us, through the years, I do like people to like me. I will admit that. And there is a certain amount of people pleasing that I do. However, not nearly to the extent I used to when I was young. I think as we get older, we do get a little bit better perspective, since I'm not actually 30 or 40 anymore. So, but we do learn along the way if we open ourselves up to those lessons. Sometimes it's the past failures that come that stop us, that we think, well, I've tried this before and it didn't work. Well, maybe it wasn't the right time, or maybe you weren't ready. Sometimes one of the lessons that I learned last year when I was doing Experiencing God was that sometimes the waiting, God has us in the waiting. Now, if God's got you in the waiting, don't start moving around. You know, just continue to do whatever He has you doing right now. Just keep doing that until He shows you the next path. Okay, that's waiting in God's time. But I'm talking about the waiting that we're putting in on our time. And sometimes it's our past failures, as I said, the opinion of others. That kind of goes back to the people pleasing. Why do we do that? When we know God is calling us to something, His pleasure should be all that we're seeking, knowing that He's smiling, that we're taking the action that He wants. Don't you love that picture? And I think because He loves us so much that He smiles at us a lot. But I do think there are some times like He just shakes His head. Oh, Delinda, what are you doing? It's like, I'm sorry, Lord, forgive me. And how do you live? So how do you know that you are living and you are in the confidence gap if you're really in that? So think about this. If you are beginning to feel like you're invisible, have you ever felt that? Do you feel invisible? You feel like you're shrinking? You hesitate to give your opinion on something because, for whatever, you think your opinion doesn't matter. You think you're not enough. You think somebody else is better than you. You think somebody might laugh at you. The thing is, y'all, let's own up to it. We do have our own opinions. And sometimes we might need to look at some information and maybe we need to change our opinion. But it's nothing wrong with giving your opinion and just saying, well, here's how I think about this. Whatever it is, it could be something at work. Maybe you are working a job and everybody else seems to have all these great ideas and you feel like you don't have any. Well, yours might be the idea they're waiting on. They don't know it, and maybe you don't even know it. But don't be afraid, y'all. Just like own your thoughts, own your opinions, own who you are. And who you are as a believer, if you're a believer on here with me this morning, if you're a believer, your total 100% confidence comes in whose you are. Your confidence comes from Christ and what He has in Him, the work that He's doing in you. He started it, He will complete it. He always does. So look at yourself and maybe make a note again of where are you shrinking? Where are you holding back? Where are you not being your total 100% self? And that's an easy place to get to. And if you catch yourself going there, that's the first step, is realizing that, like, oh my gosh. So I'd like to you that I'm going to give you an assignment, should you choose to accept it, like Mission Impossible, is I want you to notice anytime you shrink back this week. Really notice if you are holding back, if you're kind of folding back into the shadows, you're not, sometimes it's often even a shrinking in your demeanor, like your shoulders relax, you just kind of almost like you want to fade into the wall. You don't want anybody to see you. Y'all, if you're feeling that, that is where your confidence is falling down. That's where you're lacking in that area. You're afraid, and ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? And look at it realistically. Is this real? Is this person really better than me? No. They might have more information than you, but that doesn't mean that your opinion isn't valid. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a person or any less valuable than that person. And sometimes we just let those lies of the world, those lies we've told ourselves for years, we let those take a hold of our life. The lies the enemy wants to tell you because he wants to hold you back. God's created you for something amazing, something unique just to you. And he has it for you when you're ready to take the step towards it. So let's go back to the little child again that's at trying to get to the door. Or let's take it further. This little girl, just be little girl, is at the age where she now is getting ready to ride her bike. Now we know that almost always when a child is learning to ride a bike, they fall. They start falling over. Sometimes they really scratch up their knees. Sometimes it's just a little fall into the grass, but they keep getting up. And maybe they don't make it that first day. Maybe it takes several days. It kind of does. I think sometimes it does take a couple days to really get it until they gain that confidence. But confidence, y'all, here's the big mind shaking idea for you today. And it's not new. It's just something we forget sometimes is that confidence comes after we take action. You're not going to know how to ride the bike unless you keep getting on the bike and riding the bike. You're not going to know how to do a speech, a public speech, unless you do it the first time. You're not going to know how to lead a Bible study class until you've done it the first class. You just, every time we do something new, it's a fearful thing. Um, we we hold back because we haven't done it before. The first time you do a live Facebook, your first Facebook Live, the first time you decide to take a road trip. I have a friend. I love her dearly. If she's on this morning, she'll know I'm talking about her. But for years, I don't know, my mother always drove cross country. We just did as a family. We always just drove everywhere. And so taking road trips is just in my DNA. I actually love to drive for the most part. Every so often, I don't want to take a long trip. But in general, road trips are in my DNA and it is so easy for me. I can stay awake. I think my longest one day, I know this is not a big important fact, but the longest day that I ever drove was 900 miles. I started at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning here in Kansas City and drove 900 miles towards Las Vegas. We don't normally go that long, but for some reason the sun was out. I was feeling good. It was still dark. I mean, still light until 9 o'clock at night. So I just kept driving. It was great. But then a lot of you may not be like that. Matter of fact, I think a lot of people are not. So my really great friend, she had never driven on the road by herself. And that trip I took was by myself. So she could not understand how I could just get in the car and drive. Because sometimes I said, well, why don't you go see your mom? Well, I just can't drive. And, my husband's busy and he doesn't have time to do that. I said, but you can do it yourself. And she said, I know you can, Delinda, but that's not me. Now she does. I'm so proud of her somewhere along the lines. And I don't know exactly what had happened because we lived close together for a while. And then after that, we didn't. But then I think because it became necessary really for her to go see her mom more regularly, she did that. And after she did, just like, oh, I don't know why I waited so long. So, what is it that you're waiting for, you guys? What is it that's holding you back? What is something that you're just afraid of? But when you take the first step towards that, what's your next faithful step? What is it that you want? What dream do you have? What opening has God opened for you? Where is He leading you? And what is your next step? What's that first step? That's the first step to grow your confidence. Whatever it is in whatever area, if it's spiritually, if it's physically, if it's in the work mode, whatever it is you work, if it's starting a business, no matter where it is in your life, trust me, one faithful step gives you one step closer to the confidence that you long for. We all want to be confident. There's areas certainly that I'm still not, but what I've learned, okay, this is a great thing. God has just blessed me so much. What I've learned is that I don't have to do everything, but that God brings people around you and surrounds you with people who often have the gifts that you don't have. God has given me a beautiful team of women to work with. I am just so blessed. They fill in the gaps that I don't have. And then I think sometimes I fill in the gaps for them. And that's the way it's supposed to be. We don't have to, ladies, women, we don't have to do everything ourselves. We can ask for help. We can just be here, and they come to me. They ask me, "What can I do to help you?" It's like, at first, it's like, "Oh, no, no, I got it. I got it." And then I realized God's bringing them in my life for a reason. Why should I deprive them of the blessing? Because if God brings someone in your life for a reason, might be for a reason or for a season or for a lifetime, we never know. But when God brings those people in your life, look at it and say, well, you know, God brought them here for a reason. I need to let them help me. I need to let them come alongside and let's do this whatever thing together. It's a beautiful thing. And your confidence is even going to be better by doing that because now you're confident that you don't have to hold all the balls in the air, that you don't have to be the one holding everything together because really, are we? God's doing it, right? We're not holding it all together. He's got us. And I just love the fact that we never are in this alone and we don't have to shrink away. Verse I want to point out to you this morning is 2 Timothy 1:7. Says, for God has not given us a spirit. Oh, and it just left me a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and uh, a mind, strong mind. My page that I was reading that off of just decided to leave me. I don't know why, but then again, I don't know a lot of things. So it just left. Maybe the enemy did not want me to say that beautiful line from the scriptures. So, but y'all know what it is. I gave it to you, right? 2 Timothy 1:7 is where that is. And this is just such a wonderful verse of encouragement, power. He did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and sound mind. With that, do we have to worry about anything, right? Because he's got it for us. And if he's calling you, he will equip you. Doesn't and sometimes the equipping, is a learning curve. Most of the time it is. I remember where I was headed down a little road a few minutes ago when I said one of the things that I learned in experiencing God is the fact that sometimes the waiting that God has us in, if He has us in a waiting time, is because He is growing us. He's developing our character or He's equipping us for the next step. So it's that part of being really alert to where He's leading and just being confident that He's got it, that He is equipping you, and that when that actual door opens, you'll be ready because you're going to be ready to step into it. That's what you want, right? You want to step into those blessings that God has for you. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to miss any of those. I want every single one of the blessings that are just showering down. There's showers of blessing. And I love that. That's what I want. And I want to be a blessing to others in that same way. When we are walking in confidence, y'all, it is not in God's plan for you to shrink back. That's why He gives us the power, right? That's why He gives us the power. That's why He gives us the Holy Spirit so that we can move forward in faith and in confidence. It is His confidence, the God confidence that you have that fills that gap. And He will do that for you. It takes just one step of faith and just believing that that's true. And one of the other things that I think is important is when you start realizing that you're beginning to shrink, just take it to the Lord. Like, Lord, help me. I feel myself pulling back. He did not create you to be small. He created you to shine. You know, one of my, well, it's one of my life verses in second in Philippians 2, 15 says, shine like stars in the universe. Come on, he didn't say go hide your, matter of fact, another scripture, I think Matthew says, do not hide your light under a bushel, but shine like stars in the universe as you hold out the word of truth. So be bold in your faith, be bold in the truth of who Christ is, be bold in the truth of who he created you to be. Step forth in your boldness, step forth in your calling to what he's calling you to. And if you're still trying to figure that out, reach out to someone and, talk to them about it. Most of all, pray about it. Ask the Lord where he's leading you. What has he planted in your heart? There's probably something in your heart that you're just longing for, longing to do. And God's the one who planted that in your heart. It says he will give you the desires of your heart. He's going to plant that. He has planted that in your heart, and he will give you the whatever you need to make that come true, because he's not going to leave you alone. And that's where your confidence comes from. It's the confidence of knowing that. You don't have to be everything to everybody. You just have to be what God's created you to be. That is where your confidence is. And that is what fills in the gap. So I am so thankful that you were here with me this morning. And I look forward to these Tuesday mornings, never knowing really where God's going to lead and what we're going to talk about, but always to hopefully give you practical thoughts and ideas and tips on things that you can do to increase your faith, to grow in your faith, to just live in your life a little bit better because of maybe some idea that you have heard on the show. So I am looking forward to the next time we gather together. And up here in the corner, I always go to the wrong side. Let's see. Over here. See this up here in the corner? You guys, some things I'm good at and some things I'm not, and that's okay. I can live with that. All right, DelindaLane.com/gift. It's a little booklet called 7 Choices That Can Change Your Life, because I'm sure you'll agree with me that it is the choices we make every day, sometimes those small ones, that make the biggest life changes. So those are 7 choices that change your life. If you want it, it's free. All I want you to do is go, give me your email address. I'll trade you your email address for a little booklet. I promise I'm not going to bug you. I'm not going to be sending you messages every day. I promise. That really wouldn't be right. That'd be it just wouldn't be right. So I'm not going to do that. So if you want the book, I would love to give it to you and let you just kind of see if those choices, and once you read it, if you decide that it helped you a little bit or you had some thoughts, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your feedback. I love to know what's going on in your life. So if you want to leave me a message in the comments today, that'd be great. Remember, I'm challenging you to pay attention this week to any time you shrink back or hold back, fade into the woodwork, so to speak. When you feel yourself doing that, I want you to write it down and pay attention to it, because once you start noticing it, then you can make the change and step in fully owning who you are as a child of God, joint heir with Christ. That's an amazing thing. All right, my friends, go out and make it a great week, because why? Because it is your choice. You get to choose. All right, bye now, and I will see you next time.